Okay, this is going to be a non-comprehensive and advanced tutorial for porting a source map to Unity. So by no means easy, where you're going to have to exercise some skills. You can see there's a Vim macros text file here, so you betcha it's going to get a little difficult. But besides that, you just need a couple tools, and then it's pretty easy. We're going to start off by opening up BSP source. We're going to decompile the BSP we want to port. So just open it up. It requires Java. So if you don't have that, it won't work. But go to Half-Life 2, maps. I want to port over D1 train station. And decompile that. I'm going to stick it inside of this folder I've made for it on my desktop. It's going to decompile. The next thing we're going to want is Half-Life 2, because it comes with this handy little tool called Hammer. You want to make sure that you have the ZFBX exe inside of it. It comes with the source port kit. You just drag and drop it in there. You can launch it up. Once it's open, you can go open your decompiled VMF. The VMF is just a text file full of all the information that we need. You can hold space and left click and zoom around, make sure everything's hunky-dory. And then we want to go into tools, options, set the build program to ZFBX as the BSP executable. Then you can simply press run map and run the BSP, don't run viz, don't run rad, and don't run the game after compiling. And they'll sit here and export all of the models as well as the textures that are needed to display this map. It doesn't, however, export the compiled BSP map, it just exports the brushes, which is kind of a problem. It also doesn't export decals, which we'll have to do manually. So it's going to say there's an error, but it's just looking for the compiled BSP, which was never made, so we don't really care. We're kind of done with Hammer now. Go and see that we have models and textures, as well as an FBX of the map. That one's kind of crap though, so what we do is we open up Crafty. Oops. No. There we go. So it's called the object viewer, and what we can do with it is just open up the map directly and export the proper BSP. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to do view file system browser, and you want to make sure Half-Life 2 is here. And not only that, you also want to make sure that Half-Life 2 has all of the materials and all of the models and stuff. And in order to do that, we actually need to go and extract them manually. So if we go to the Half-Life 2 directory, what you need to do is extract these packs into the same directory that they're in. And you'd use GCFscape in order to do that. So you take this like miscellaneous directory pack, and then you'll have all the models here, and you would just right click and extract it into this folder here. I've already done that, so you don't have to watch me slowly do that. But if Half-Life 2 isn't in the file system browser, what you'd have to do is you go File, Open, Folder, and then browse to the Half-Life 2 directory, which has all our materials and stuff inside of it. Then finally, Object Viewer will function. So then you can just go and open up the BSP, and it should just load right up, and you should be able to make sure you can see the models and the textures and everything. However, we don't even want the models because of Half-Life 2, or excuse me, ZFBX has already exported them for us. So you go into the options and exporting and just disable models. Then you go to File, Export. Now this exports a lot of garbage, so you gotta be careful with it. Okay, so we go and we check, and we could see that it exported 1,000,000 materials, but unfortunately these materials are all very crappily named, so we have to just quickly, we're gonna delete them and then fix up the references inside the MTL file. This is where our Vim skills come in handy. So if you have git bash, which is also part of the source kit, you can right click and just open up a terminal. You do vim d1 train station 01 compile.mtl. Now you can see our problem here is that the map KD has the original crappy name, while the proper name is in a comment right above it. There's actually two different like sorts of problems. So there's one where the texture is prepended by this maps D1 train station, which is not actually where the texture is located. It's also prepended, or at the end there's some numbers as well, which I don't know why they're there, but they're not important, so we have to fix that up. So what you can do is I made a little Vim macro cheat sheet, and you can just type this out and it will fix the file. When you see a new line, you press enter, and when you see the escape in brackets, you just press escape. But I've already set up the macros, so I can just do it. So I can just do, oops, let's say 10,000 at Q. I'll fix up all that. I'll do 10,000 at W, and we're done. Well, for you, it might be a little bit harder, and I might have even made a mistake in here, but I doubt it. And if you accidentally like mistype something, you can just press escape, press Q, and then start over, and it should get you back to where you can start over. But this is all fixed up, so I'm gonna do :WQ to write out, and that file's all fixed up. However, Unity still can't open it. So what we do is first we need to get the files next to the textures, because that's kind of how we set up the references. So I cut and paste it next to our textures folder, which contains everything we need. Now we can open up Blender, which is necessary. Oops. So what we can do is we can fix up the texture references with Blender, which isn't so bad. Just takes a second to open it. This is where you can also fix up the file. Generally I export it first, then look at it in Unity before I do anything special, but right now the map is ginormous, so we have to change the clipping plane a little bit. Once we can see it, we need to make sure that the textures show up, which they do. You can see this is a white part that doesn't seem to be ported properly, and it's because it's like a blend texture that isn't easily ported. We can just replace it with a dirt texture and it'll look pretty good. But now that the texture references are all fixed up, we can export an FBX. And I'm gonna put it right next to my train station map. I'm gonna call it compiled FBX. I could quit Blender. Oops. Quit Blender again because I opened it twice. Okay, so at this point, we've almost compiled all the information that we need. The last thing that we need, actually, is the decals, because the decals aren't ported over. So how you would do that is, after you've extracted all your information, there's just a decals folder in Half-Life 2. But they're all in this VTF and VMT format. So what you use is you use VTF edit, and you can batch convert it. So you do tools, convert folder, and you just specify that decals folder, and then put it somewhere else. I've already done it though, so what I'm going to do is just copy it from my other file. Let's see. I really need this to be here. There you go. Decals, yeah. I'm just gonna paste that in there. Now finally what we need to do is we need to put it inside of Unity itself. I like to do it before launching Unity just because Unity loves to loves to import everything while you're messing around. So what I do is I go into my project folder, which you should already have, and then make a folder for it and start copying everything over. So the information that we need is we do need this VMT. It contains all of the like entity data that we need. However, Unity can't read a VMT, so we change it to a .text and then copy that over. The next thing that we need is our compiled FBX, but we need to have the texture references with it. So we bring the textures as well as the models. Once that's done, we can open up Unity and then let it load for an hour. So now that we're opened, finally, we can go check out our map. The first thing that we want to do is we want to click on our FBX and set the scale factor to 0.01. This is because Blender exports 100 times and I don't know why. Beyond that, we are pretty much set up to go. Next thing we can do is click. Oh yeah, you'd have to import the source tools. It's also part of the pack. There it is. To do that, you just go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and then you click on it. But I want this imported. You should be able to load VMF. There's some default stuff here, maybe not for you, but I could explain where to get every asset. So the VMF text is just the VMF containing all the entity information. It's pretty handy. The map FBX is the compiled BSP mesh that we can drag in. The decal shader should be set to standard. I have it here because I don't want to manually search and load for standard. Same with the rope and decal prefab. You can also change them up, alter them. The prefabs are just located in the source tool folder under prefabs, so you can drag and drop those in. The model parent folder, this is the hard one. If you mess this up, it doesn't work properly. Essentially, it's where your models and textures folder is located under, and in this case, it's assets, maps, D1 trading station. And the tricky part is that you have to end it with a / because it's a folder. So in this case, that should do just fine. So now, if we press create, as long as our decals and models are all put in the correct spot, it should set up the map quite nicely. The things that we need to check here is the console for errors. So we can see there's 7 errors. It couldn't find decal poster 014A for the decals or 14B. So we're missing a couple posters, which is fine. No one would probably notice, but if you wanted them, you'd have to go and make sure that those TGAs are positioned correctly. But my script should set up all of the lights, it should set up the environment lighting, and it should set up even the ropes that are in the map for you automatically. The thing is that my simulations aren't perfect, or I don't want to I can't just duplicate the code perfectly. For example, in source, decals don't have rotation data, or like direction or anything like that. They're just a position in space. So in this case, the decal wasn't positioned correctly, and so you just have to go and manually adjust them so that they look correct. There's only a few, so in this map, this is the few textures that don't work properly. The scale's just a tad bit off, because they also don't come with scale information either. I could improve my scripts, but it's pretty easy just to go through and kind of fix them up like this. There we go. Oops. Perfect. Okay. As for everything else, so the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press play and check out these ropes and make sure that they're working properly. You can see some props over there flipping out. You can see there's these ropes here, and I thought that my script messed up and I had no idea why they were there. However, I went and I checked the hammer map, and there is actually ropes attached here, and I don't know why. I also don't know why you don't see it when you come out. Maybe they're attached to some object or something that moves out of the way, or I don't really know, but you can see a couple of these ropes need a bit of tweaking. So what we can do is we can reduce the slack out of this one so that it goes over top this walkway. Actually, that wouldn't make any sense. It definitely should go under it, so we can increase the slack. I'm going to delete these 4, and there's a couple of things freaking out here. You can see there's doubled up models here, actually. This is due to, this is actually in the game, so I'm not sure why that's there, but, oh yeah, and we also have to fix up the textures, but you can see these ropes are going through the ground, so let's tweak them up real quick. I can show you how to do that. So we could just click on all 3 of these. Oops. There we go. Go to rope sim. The problem is that there's too many bones and there's too much gravity. I'm going to reduce the bone density by half, increase the strength, cheat a little bit and give us a little bit less gravity, and that should fix that up. This one needs to be reduced as well. Or, excuse me, the slack reduced. You can increase the strength, decrease the gravity. That should, oh wait. No, we wanted to add slack to this one, actually. There you go. As for this, there's actually 2 wires here. There's one supposed to have more slack than the other, and I could probably improve my script to read it. However, it's not 1-to-1 because of the ways we tackled the problem was just different. So I could just decrease the strength here, decrease the gravity, and I should separate them a little bit so at least they look nicer. I'm gonna delete these 4 wires because I don't actually understand what they're doing. However, if you wanted to just like hook them up somewhere, you can actually, when you click on it, you'd have to go and figure out the end point of it. So this is, oh. I'm gonna have to crack all these open, I think, because it's not showing which one I have selected. There it is. So rope 21, click the end point, and you could just move it around and position it, but I'm just gonna delete them. Oops. Oh yeah, I used the right arrow key to crack them all open like that. So you can see it's rope 21 through rope 24. Just delete those. All done. You can see that the ropes are disappearing and appearing, and that's because we haven't baked the mesh bounds yet. And it has no idea where the rope is actually located. Once your ropes are all set up though, we can go and bake them, and to do that what we need to do is we need to select every single rope and then enable record animations. And to do that very easily, what we can do is we could type in the search bar here rope, and then we could just select all the ropes without a number, and then we should be able to go over here and click on record animation, which will let us bake some animations onto it. So now if I press play, what we want to do is we want to wait for it to spawn all the animations, and we also have to wait for it to spawn some text files, which is the bounds, before we press stop. There you go, it spawns all the animations. Unfortunately, it doesn't do it at the same time, so you just gotta wait a little bit. I might have to double check my scripts. They should happen at the same time. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, so there's the text files here. I don't know why they don't show up in the editor. Oh, okay. You need to make sure that they... I actually don't know if you need to wait for them to show up, but if your mesh bounds are incorrect, that's definitely going to cause a problem. When you let go of play, the script should detect that we've generated some rope information, and it should delete all these text files. Now what we need to do is we need to select all the ropes again, and we need to delete, give me a second. Oh. I'm gonna remove this mesh, the rope mesh render, and we need to remove this rope sim, because now we've already baked our animations in, and we can tell that the mesh bounds are correct by looking at the white box, and then it should let us press play, and it should act exactly the same but without any scripts, so it works in VRChat. Nice. So then what we want to do now is we want to move these animations. It just kind of dumps everything into the assets folder. I'm sorry that I don't want to have configuration be too complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a folder in here and call it animations. And then we can just drag and drop all of our rope animations into the animations folder, and their references don't get broken, so all of these ropes should now be fully animated without scripts, and we can now forget about them. The next thing that I want to work on is that we have this white texture here. This essentially is just like manual fixing up of the materials. Depending on the map, you're going to have a lot of these because there's lots of blend textures. Half-Life loves to have blend textures. I know for a fact this one's called red grass, and something that looks a lot like red grass is some dirt. I'm just gonna do that. There you go. That looks pretty good. The next thing I want to do is that all of these textures are very shiny, and that's Half-Life 2 is just not very shiny, so I'm gonna select all the materials and turn the smoothness down. That'll make it look a lot better. The next thing that you have to do is you got to go and select the textures that have transparency and set them to cutout or transparent. There's only a couple of them. They're pretty easy to find too. And you could search for glass windows and then set those to transparent and stuff. Some trusses. Once you've done all that, you can go and manually scan for these. So if you double click on these, you can see that it has a fence alpha, which you could just quickly set to cut out. Like that. There's a couple more, if I remember correctly. Oh, that might be it. Okay. Next thing that you want to do is we want to generate lighting. So I don't manually place reflection, or I don't automatically place reflection probes. Also, these lights aren't perfect, so it does read a spot angle from source, but sometimes the data values just don't match up. So you might want to go and like manually tweak these to make sure they're good. But they're all set to baked, and we also can't even see if they're correct. So the next thing we need to do is set up the lighting. What you're gonna want is there's a cool script that automatically places light probes. That will also probably be in the source port kit because it's just so useful. But in order to do it, what we need to do is we need to click on our map and just turn on static. Turn it on for our children too. For our static entities, we want to turn on static, but however, we don't want to turn on light map static because we don't want to generate light maps for all these tiny little props that have very little effect on the map. The next thing I want to do is delete this guy because there you go. You can see there's Z fighting there. To fix that, you can move them around a little bit because it'll regenerate their height. There's actually just way too many posters here. However, I'm gonna leave it. You could fix it in a lot of different ways. If you remove the decal script, it will leave the mesh and it won't regenerate it, so you can like move it forward a little bit or back. But once we're all happy with that, see, dynamic entities are entities that move in the map, so you don't want to turn on static for those. The lights are static. I don't think it matters if you turn it on or off though. What we're gonna want to do is, you notice there's a lot of directional lights that are set to mixed. You're gonna want to select all of those. They have the name environment in them. So environment, I'm gonna just select 4 of them and set them to baked because we only need 1 light with shadows, or like real-time shadows. Oh, they don't even have shadows turned on, so there you go. Turn on soft shadows there. And then you'd want to turn on soft shadows for a couple of the spotlights if you really wanted. So that only, like, at any one time there should only be like 1 light with shadows affecting like your view area. Okay, but once that's all set up, what we want to do is, now that we set everything to static, we can go to navigation. It's under window navigation, somewhere in here. There you go. And we want to bake the map, but before we do that we need to save it. Oops. Name this one D1 train station 01. I can bake, bake all of where people can stand and move around and stuff. We might want to set the agent radius to very thin because of, we basically want to stick in light probes everywhere. It's not generating lighting, is it? Oh shit, it is. There you go. Nice. Okay, perfect. So now what we want to do is there's a script that generates all our light probes, which are very important. So I'm going to add a light probe group, and then I'm going to do window generate light probes, which is just comes from a script that you can grab. Drag in our light probe group and press generate. Oh, it's done. Yeah. Okay. So it placed all of our light probes for us. It placed them up a little high, actually. You can adjust that, but it should work fine, probably. Oh wow. Oh wow. No wonder it felt comfortable putting those so high, but it should be good enough. It essentially will just sample the light at those locations and put those on the objects, which is a lot faster than other methods. But now what we can do is we can go to lighting, and the first thing we want to do is disable real-time global illumination. That will skip a big step in jittering our light. The next thing I want to do is we want to select that directional light that we set as our sun, essentially, and put that into our sun source. And then we can just generate lighting. Now this will take a while the first time, but from then on it should only take a couple minutes. So if it takes any longer than that, it's because our meshes are made out of too many pieces, or you have too many things set to light map static. But meanwhile, I'll come back when it's done. Oh, no, meanwhile, we can make the reflection probes. So essentially, reflection probes are just objects that sample the area around them, and they're used in pretty much all lighting calculations. But you can't have too many of them because they're kind of hefty on the data side, and it's recommended on the Unity site not to put too many of them. But essentially you can just kind of like stuff them in and set their bounds pretty high, and they should be pretty good. I place these manually. Source comes with some what is it, light probe entities, but in Source they're much cheaper, and you can place very many of them in Source. You could probably do the same here, but for optimization reasons you probably just want to keep it a little bit lower. You do want to cover every inch of space, because as soon as somebody walks outside of a reflection probe group, you can actually see it right here. You see the train tracks like get a really unnatural hue there, and then the reflection probe grabs them and makes them look better. So you essentially want to have these cover every inch of space, so that even if tall avatars were nearby, they wouldn't struggle. I usually make a empty game object and stick all the reflection probes in it. Done putting the reflection probes in. So what you can do now is select them all and make sure you didn't miss any spots. Alright, while this is going on, we can start cutting up the map. Import an FBX. It's gonna be under here we go. So what we want to do right now is that since the map comes as one giant mesh, it's going to be rendered every frame, all of it. So you want to split it up. So for example, all this stuff over here, this could be separated so that when a player isn't there, they won't render it. What is that? Oops. It's a tiny box. But essentially what we want to do is, I'm going to turn on textures. Oh, it should be fine. Despite the textures not rendering, the material data is there, it's just acting funny. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to separate all these things apart. So this big area right here can be separated into one big chunk. So I'm going to select faces. I'm just gonna grab it all, like so. And I can deselect everything else. Oops. Oh man, you need to make sure you have that ticked so you can select it all through it. There we go. And zoom in a little bit. I know it's sideways, but you'll have to bear with it because of, it's not that big of a deal. Just using Blender's camera is a little bit annoying. You can take these out. Essentially what you want to do is separate it into viz leaves manually. Which honestly isn't that bad, because you just use a selection inversion to like get all the different pieces that you need, and then it can go fairly quickly. So in this case, I've selected the piece that I want to keep, so I just do select, inverts, delete, faces. Oh no, those are different objects. That's fine. Actually, maybe it's not. Here, I'm gonna undo all that. Oh man. So I guess the first thing that you want to do is join all your models together. Because it doesn't matter if they're together or not. You can always separate them afterwards if you don't like it. There we go. Perfect. Select, inverse, delete faces. There we go. So that's one half of our map. FBX. So what I do now is I put into part 1. Export. And then I press undo, undo. Now I can do select, inverse, delete that. And that's going to be gone forever because we've completed that part of the part. The next thing I'm going to do is probably separate these out because of those will hardly ever be rendered, if at all. So I'm going to select the part that I want to keep. Select inverse, delete faces, export, FBX, part 2. Undo, undo, select. Have all our parts done. And stick them into the map, and how we're gonna do that is we actually want to delete this, but I'm just going to make it non-existent for a second. Cancel the slide generation because it's kind of pointless right now. Let's go to maps. We have all our pieces. We should be able to just copy and paste them all in. So I'm just going to disable this. And we go part 1. Drag that in. 0, we go 90, 80. Oh my. Ta-da. Oops, it's still backwards. Negative 90. There we go. So that's the specified settings you have to paste onto each part. Shouldn't be that bad. Nice. Okay, let's check our navigation. It's still there. Light probes are still in a good spot. I can now delete this clone there. I'm going to stick these all into the world under static world. There you go. Now I can bake lighting properly now. Still a couple things to touch up though. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to get the skybox in. So what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to open up Hammer again. I think I deleted the VMF, so I'm also going to decompile because I'm dumb. We essentially just want to check which skybox texture is there. I don't remember how to do that, but we'll figure it out. There it is. Sky Day 0101. So if we go to our Half-Life 2 materials, I imagine under Skybox, there we go. 0101. I believe we just want these. So I'm gonna copy those and put them in a folder. And then I'm gonna use VTF edit to grab them, or convert them, excuse me. Just do tool, convert folder, and I'll make a new folder here. Can I just do this? Nope. Yeah. Convert it to a TGA and convert close. So now we have our TGAs back, down, left, front, left, right, up. Perfect. I'm just going to copy those and put it into our assets. Under textures, paste. We'll import them. I realize this is gonna restart our light baking, probably, maybe. But anyway, now we go to materials, create new material. I'll call this Skybox 0101 because that's what it was called, I'm pretty sure. It's gonna be a Skybox 6-sided. We got our front. Back. I realize I have this twice now. Which one's my left? There you go. Oops, missed it down. Perfect. Now it's possible that it's rotated, which it is. You can just open it up in GIMP and fix it. However, I've already done that before. There we go. Oh, you also have to go into the textures, skybox. You need to make sure all of these are set to clamp. Otherwise, the skybox kind of looks goofy. We can go Sky Day So, cool. I don't have to regenerate lighting. Let me check it out real quick. It's pretty convincing. Now we wait. Okay, it's finally done. It took a little while. I did some stuff off camera. I changed the render order of these posters so that they don't Z-fight. For the light map generation, I did a couple things to help optimize it. I deleted the things that were way off map. I deleted the screens here because there's a bunch of faces in them. And I went and adjusted the UV charts manually to make sure that there was a lot less of them. There's a bit of distortion here and there, but it's fine. In order to do that, you just click on them and go to lighting and increase the max distance and the max angle. And that definitely sped up the light map generation quite a bit. And before I really committed to a light map generation, I changed the settings and decreased the indirect resolution to 0.5 and the light map resolution to 1. It would only take like 2 minutes to generate the lighting then. I could quickly see and be like, oh hey, these need more light. I increased the indirect lighting in here because it's supposed to be pretty bright. I went and clicked on the majority of the lights that were just by themselves and turned them into mixed lights. That way players would be more heavily affected by the lighting by them. And finally, I set up an occlusion area, which is a really basic box that when you bake occlusion, what it does is it makes it so that cameras get occluded. Get occlusion, excuse me. It makes it so that if they can't see something, it just won't draw it. And it uses some sweet quad tree business to like get that to work. It's magic. But there's a lot of maps that don't have these, and they're a lot less optimal because of it. And this would also not be, this wouldn't be as good if we left the map in one big chunk like we could have. And that's it. Well, map's pretty much done. I just have to add a couple more things, but as for being inside Unity and being completely functional, it's working just fine.